Welcome to Life, bringing you insight and experiences into love, relationships, and fertility, with a focus on enjoying life and moving forward. On today's podcast, we'll be speaking about surrogacy with Karen Synesiou, Vice President of Third-Party Reproduction at the Center of Surrogate Parenting. Welcome to Life, love, insight, fertility, experiences. I'm here with Karen Synesiou, Vice President of Third-Party Reproduction at the Center of Surrogate Parenting. It's an international organization established in 1980, shortly after the laws changed in the United States allowing surrogacy. It's a way of assisting intended parents of having children. So Karen, thank you so much for being here today. And there's so much to talk about in terms of the inception of the field and how parents decide to do this. Where would you like to start today?
Well, thank you, Lori, for having me on your broadcast. I think the information you are sharing with your public is invaluable. And so I'm happy to be here today. So I thought I would start by giving a little history of surrogacy. So surrogacy began back in 1980. Center for Surrogate Parenting was started by my business partner, Bill Handel. In those very early days, there were no laws about surrogacy. So technically, the surrogate mom was the mom, and the intended father would add his name because he could prove his link to the child. And then the mother, the intended mother, would have to go through a step-parent adoption.
Wow.
Now we fast forward all of this time, laws began to become established in America, and in today's world, the intended mom and the intended father are now recognized as the parents on the original birth certificate, which is the way it should be from the very beginning, because they are the ones that are creating this child, and they should have the recognition on the original birth certificate.
It almost gives me the chills as you say that, especially since they're the intended parents. So that's a huge difference.
You know, one of the things I often say to my clients is, whether it's your egg or your sperm or both of your egg and sperm that are creating this child, this particular genetics would not exist in the world if it were not for them coming together and creating this child. If they chose a different sperm donor, a different egg donor, a different genetic child would exist. But the only reason why this particular child exists in this world is because those intended parents created the child. And
I love that. Yes.
They are the parents.
Absolutely. I absolutely agree with you. And so this law changing had to be so significant for these parents who are intending to have this child.
It is wonderful. It's wonderful that you don't have to go through a step-parent adoption and basically adopt your own child. I mean, that is ridiculous. And I think part of it is recognition that infertility is a disease, and it's not a choice that we're all making. It is a disease like any other disease. And I believe that the law and medicine should be doing all they can to help infertile couples battle this disease that they have and overcome it.
Yes, I agree with you.
And one day insurance will cover it, right?
I agree with you. And I think, though, that the beautiful part of this is that when we compare fertility challenges to a chronic illness or a disease, the difference is that you will have a child. We're just not sure how you're going to have that child, but you can have the family that you want. It just may not look like the family you initially intended it to be.
Correct. That at the end of this journey, you will become a parent. It just might not be of the same genetic child you thought you were going to have.
So how do you then go about the selection process? Now you have these intended parents who want a child, and you have to find a surrogate. I know that you do an extensive evaluation of them,
correct,
as well as of the intended parents, and then you try and match them. How does this even happen?
Well, I'll start with the screening of a surrogate mom. So the screening of a surrogate mom is obviously a very lengthy process. So at CSP, we have about 400 applicants from surrogate moms nationwide every single month.
Wow.
Now we've got to go through all of those applicants, and we're looking for the right kind of person to be a surrogate mom. So first of all, you're looking for a woman who has previously given birth. You clearly don't want to work with someone who's never given birth because, one, you want to know that she's fertile herself, and having a child means that she's fertile and can carry a good pregnancy. But two, as we all know, every pregnancy can be dangerous. So you don't want a young lady giving away or returning a child to the intended parents, then having lost the ability to carry a second child for herself.
Yes.
So we want to make sure that surrogate moms have completed their families.
Oh,
So
that's such a significant point that I think many people would not have
absolutely.
thought of.
Yeah, we don't want to do
Yeah.
harm. So for CSP, a successful surrogacy is not just a couple going home with a baby. It is also that the surrogate mom gets to return to her family with no harm being done to her.
Yes, and one of the things I noticed that you had actually written or spoken about was when you do the screening, you also want to be sure of the support system that the surrogate has in place. And
Correct.
I
So
thought,
we will meet the surrogate mom and her husband face to face.
uh huh,
We want her husband, her significant partner, maybe a mom if she's a single person. We want someone significant in her life meeting with us. But if she's married, we want to make sure that we're meeting that husband face to face, answering all of his questions that he might have. We even give husbands the opportunity of saying to them, if after this, we'll say it to him privately, if as we go through the process, you change your mind and you do not want your wife to become a surrogate mom, please just call us and tell us, and we will work with you to move your surrogate mom on so that she doesn't become a surrogate mom, or that we can resolve this between the two of you. But we need these husbands to be supportive of their surrogate moms. You don't want an angry person in the house.
absolutely. What I've noticed is that the women who I've been working with who are going through surrogacy are very taken with the families. They visit the
Yes.
families, actually, and they'll go to the surrogate's home, they'll meet the husband, and they'll meet the children, not where they're becoming best friends, but for this period of time, there's this incredible bond that goes on and this
Well, so
communication that takes
we had a
place.
surrogate mom once that we asked the question of. She was at a seminar for us, and one of the parents stood up and said, "But I don't understand. Why are you doing this?
Yes.
You've got a husband that earns a good salary. You have a great career. Why on earth did you become a surrogate mom?" And she just smiled and she said, "Let me explain it a different way. I'm not going to cure cancer. I'm just not clever enough to do that. I'm not one of those people that's going to make a huge impact on the world. But what I do really well is I can carry a pregnancy and I can help one family and help them for all their generations. That I can do. And that's why I do this."
That's quite an answer.
And it's a beautiful answer. And
Beautiful.
these surrogate moms are the most amazing, kind people that you can imagine. They love being pregnant. They love their own children. And they can't imagine someone out there is unable to have their own family. And they just want to be able to help someone have their own family.
Do you find that that's at most cases? It's very different than almost people donating an egg or donating sperm because they're actually delivering. So it's a very different process.
It's different because of commitment, right? The commitment that you're
Yes.
making. When you're a sperm donor, doesn't take that long, and when you're an egg donor, it's a 2-month process at most. But when you're dealing with surrogacy, you're in a relationship for anywhere from 18 months to 2 years with this intended parent, and then you're updating each other after that. You've really got to know each other, so it's this beautiful commitment that you have to each other and the bonding that occurs.
So how do you then do that? How do you match the two people? Because I'm sure even though the surrogates are going in at this point, because there's a very different mindset to be a surrogate than a donor, how do you then match these two people or these four
So in our
people?
program, we of course have mental health professionals that do that part, and I believe that mental health professionals are invaluable in the field of surrogacy. So the way that our program works is we're going to interview each couple, find out who they are, how their relationship works with each other. We're going to ask them intense questions. Do you want a singleton? Are you looking to have twins? If you end up with a triplet pregnancy, are you going to reduce the pregnancy? Are you going to go ahead with the pregnancy? If there's a medical problem, what will you ask the surrogate mom to do with this pregnancy? What kind of relationship do you want with your surrogate mom before, during, and after that you think you can be comfortable with? So before the pregnancy, during the pregnancy, after the pregnancy. There's no right or wrong answers, because whatever the couple says, we're going to have a surrogate mom that's saying something similar. And then when we interview the surrogate moms, we're asking her almost the same questions.
Mm-hmm.
So what the counselors then do is take this written information as well as their write-up about the personalities of the people, and we're recommending matches. But we're not saying to a couple, this is your surrogate mom, and as if they have no choice. We like to present couples with choices. So we're going to go through, choose the 2 or 3 surrogate moms that we think are perfect matches. And then we're going to go ahead and give the couple maybe 2 or 3 surrogate moms to choose from.
How does that work exactly? The couples have their choice. Do they interview each other? Do they meet? Where does that interaction happen?
But not at that particular time. What they're doing when a surrogate mom receives several couples, she normally sits with her husband at home or her friends at home.
Right.
They read over 3 or 4 profiles and say, oh my goodness, this couple just resonates with me. Right. Often we get surrogate moms that say, how do I choose? They're all so adorable. I want to help everyone. I wish I had 3 uteruses. Right. But eventually they're going to have to choose which couple they want to help.
And do you find that when they have these interactions that it's easy for people to connect?
Once you do a proper match and you do a really good match, we're matching them because of the things that they have in common. Okay. So the flow of conversation is helpful. So once a surrogate mom is chosen, then a couple gets to choose. Now the couple's not interviewing the surrogate mom yet. They're looking at the profile and they're speaking to the counselor who interviewed that surrogate mom. So that counselor knows the surrogate mom pretty intimately and has spoken to her on several occasions, including going to a group meeting with her. Once the couple then chooses which surrogate mom they want to work with, then the counselor hosts a meeting between the surrogate mom and the couple.
And how does that usually go? I'm wondering how comfortable people are when they first meet or how excited they are.
I think everyone is scared out of their minds because this is the person that's carrying a baby and you're meeting someone for the first time, which is why a counselor is there to do the introduction.
What comes to mind to me is the issues of control or the feelings of control, because now you're kind of relinquishing the caring of your child to this person who you don't know. And they very often, if you're living in New York State or out of state, because the laws in New York don't allow for surrogacy, or if you're doing something internationally, because I know you work internationally, how does that communication take place in that comfort level?
So part of getting a couple ready for a match is a conversation with the counselor about having to relinquish control, because you don't have control. You need to learn to trust.
Right.
And what we're doing in allowing a couple to choose a surrogate mom, we're giving them the power to choose who's going to do this for them. We're not just telling them, this person will do it for you. We're involving them in the process of choosing that person. And that psychologically is helpful to couples.
That's excellent, because it is a huge amount of control that you're relinquishing. And a lot of people who are going the surrogacy route are people who have had a lot of decisions to make and feelings of lack of control, where they may be people who are typically very much in control. And so
infertility does that to you, right? It strips you away with all your control. I mean, I did IVF to have my children. And, you know, there's a doctor out there and there's a nurse telling me what I'm doing every single day. Right. And you sort of feel that you're just a tool in their little game, but you're not. They're trying to help you. And you've just got to come to realize that I need to ask for help and I need to let the help happen. I need to accept it.
And I do believe also that comes with the trust and the comfort level in the decisions that you make, which is exactly what you're saying to these people.
Correct.
More frequently, you're starting to hear about people going the surrogacy route. And sometimes it's because they can't carry, and sometimes it's because it would be better for their lifestyle not to carry. Do you evaluate those two differently?
Sure. So at CSP, I want to help couples that are unable to have children any other way. So if you come to me and say, I'm a very successful business lady, for me to be pregnant right now in my career is just not going to happen, but I want to have children, I will decline to work with that client. I call that social surrogacy. I am very supportive of it. I have no qualms about it whatsoever. It's just that in my program, I feel that we have so few surrogate moms that make it through the screening process that I want to keep those surrogate moms for those couples that really need help. So whether you're a gay couple, whether you're a single person, whether you're a married couple, whether you're a heterosexual couple, couples need to have a reason to do surrogacy. And it can't just be a social reason in our program.
Yeah, the people who I am working with who go to your agency actually have very profound reasons as to why they're there. So
Thank you. Yes.
That's been my kind of contact with your agency, and it's been through the intended parents experience. So that's how I
Right.
came to
Thank you.
reach out to
Thank
you.
you. So one of
Which
the
is very
things that
nice.
I say to couples is, if I accept you because of your career, remember I'm having surrogate moms choose the couple. So I'm going to present a gay couple. I'm going to present you that's doing it for social reasons, and I'm going to present a couple where the wife had breast cancer. Which couple do you think the surrogate mom is going to choose?
Yes.
It's unlikely they're going to choose the social couple. So they need to go to a program where you get told who to work with, you don't get choices.
Right. No, it makes a lot of sense. And now the surrogate has already had a child, according to your kind of
Correct.
guidelines. And so
Correct.
they're going to be pregnant with their own children in the house, and they want to explain also the journey that they're taking to help other people. So now you do this, and what happens? They develop this incredible bond during the pregnancy, and then the baby's born. And then we go back to life.
Right. So the most
Okay.
important thing is that the couple. So that not every couple develops. Let me say that first. An amazing bond, because we're all different personalities, and
Right.
just because you don't bond at a very deep level with your surrogate mom doesn't make you a bad person. It doesn't make the surrogate mom a bad person. We have a lot of surrogate moms that have very, very busy lives, and they don't have that much time for the intended parents. But moving forward, when it comes to the birth, the most important moment, of course, in surrogacy is the birth. And a surrogate mom wants the intended parents to be present for the birth for two really important reasons. The first one is that for a woman, a birth is a normal birth because a parent is in the womb, we're giving birth to those children. So to a surrogate mom, this birth becomes psychologically normal if there's a parent in the womb. So you want the intended parent to be in the womb, because then
Wonderful.
she can relinquish all those feelings. There's a parent there. The second reason why a surrogate mom wants the intended parents in the room is that a surrogate mom became a surrogate mom not to become pregnant again, because you and I both know she could sleep with her husband and have a baby anytime she wants.
Uh-huh.
She's doing this to help this couple become parents. So the very minute that she gives birth and she sees her intended parents holding their baby, and she sees that look on their face, that is a moment that is owned by that surrogate mom forever, because she created that moment, and she is so extraordinarily proud of herself.
Yeah,
And
that's
we need to give her
incredible.
those moments.
It's an incredible moment.
And if you do surrogacy right, you get these moments. You get to celebrate
Yes.
these moments.
Yeah.
You get to recognize these moments. And it's the transition of knowing that you've completed your quest. Surrogacy is
Yes.
a quest for surrogate moms. And when you see that couple, the surrogate mom psychologically says, look what I did. I completed my quest. She doesn't feel that she's harmed or there's something that's missing. She's now completed that quest, and we now begin the journey of separating them so that both parties can go back to their own lives.
So I'd like to talk about that, but the other thing that's coming to mind is the finance. So you're kind of saying there's no real financial incentive for somebody to be a surrogate. Because as I'm hearing this story, which I believe it's beautiful and it's wonderful, and it is very altruistic. I mean, I don't know how much you could possibly pay somebody to do this if they don't really want to do it.
Mm-hmm.
But are people doing this for the financial gain?
I'm sure that there's a lot of surrogate moms that do it for financial gain. I have absolutely no qualms with that whatsoever. I think women are empowered to make decisions for their own body. The difference is we don't want that to be the only reason for doing
Okay.
surrogacy.
Good.
Otherwise, they won't psychologically connect with the couple. And this is what I say to couples, and I say to surrogate moms: if you're doing this only for the finances, and next week you win the lottery, does that mean you get to terminate the pregnancy
Oh, that's
or
great.
drop the couple? If the answer is I would never do that for them, then it's, well, let's explore that. You are doing it for other reasons. Let's explore those reasons and let's recognize them.
Excellent. Excellent. That's great. That's great. So if we go back to what you were saying, now you begin the separation process. How does
So
that
it's
happen?
perfectly healthy for the surrogate mom to go back to her family. Remember, she's had this project and she's pretty much ignored her kids and her family for a while. Why? She goes to doctor's appointments and etc. So now she
And
gets
especially
to
the
think,
last month of pregnancy, you're uncomfortable, and even the
exactly.
best
Although
pregnancies.
these women have amazing pregnancies. I mean, I've got to say, they look amazing. They carry amazing pregnancies. They love it. But you're right. In the last month, you're heavy, you're tired.
Right.
And so she hasn't been as active a mom as she should have been to her own family. So now she gets the opportunity on her maternity leave to really rebalance herself and get re-involved with her family to the degree that she wants to be.
And they get maternity leave. The surrogate will get maternity leave.
Exactly. They get maternity leave. They get the lost wages, whichever contribution the state or disability might make, and the couple will make up the rest of the lost wages.
Wonderful. Wonderful. So now where does the communication start to subside a little bit? Because everybody wants to go back to their own life. The intended parent wants to now raise their beautiful baby, and the surrogate needs to now pay attention to her own life and her own family.
Correct. And it's a natural progression. So you've now got a couple that was, texting and talking to the couple once, twice, 3 times a week. And now you've got a couple that doesn't have time for that because they have a newborn baby at home, right? And so there's no sleep and there's, bottles and diapers, and they're just in a crazy world with everyone visiting and celebrating with them. So they don't have as much time to do that. On the other hand, we have a surrogate mom that's missing all those messages. So this is where the agency starts stepping back in again. And this is where a fellow surrogate mom starts stepping in until the couple is a little more balanced.
Wonderful. So she gets that support from the agency at that point.
Yes. So
and you become much more involved.
Correct. So we have monthly group support meetings, which is held by a counselor, and the surrogate moms in their territory go to the group meeting. And every surrogate mom has the right to go to a meeting after birth so that she can give her birth story. And so she gets celebrated by all the other ladies in the room while she tells everyone how they celebrated the birth of this precious child.
Yeah, that's lovely. That's really lovely. What I find is, because I don't work with the surrogate, I work with the intended parents. And there's a lot of questions that come up there, and a lot of challenges that they face aside from the control. But they're looking to the future and how they're going to discuss this with their children and how they're going to talk to the children. And the dynamics are different, whether it's an embryo that was from both parents or if it's a donor sperm or donor egg. Each story is very unique and very different.
Right, and that's why intended parents should stay very closely aligned with a mental health professional, because people like you are very experienced with many, many cases under your belt where you can guide couples through all the different ways of telling your child. So where I come into the equation is when I travel to all these different countries and around America, I like to interview children that have been born through my program.
Yes, and finding out, having you share that would be fabulous, because when we were talking about that the other day, it was incredible, the stories you were telling me.
Well, it's the highlight of everything that I do is to meet these absolutely marvelous children. I mean, it's amazing to meet these children. So what I do is, whenever I travel, I contact intended parents and say, if you've told your child, I'm going to be in town, could I meet them? Would they like to give a speech at one of our seminars that we are at? And often the kids love to do that. So I like to interview the children. And so I'm interviewing them about, when did you first know you were born through surrogacy? The best answer that any child can give me is, I don't actually know when I found out. I just sort of always knew. And that, to me, is the perfect answer. Those parents have done it the right way. It wasn't hey, let's sit down and have a conversation. It was just an ongoing conversation throughout their lives.
And how does the parent become comfortable with it? What are you finding? I know how I work with people, but do you give them suggestions or tips in how to be comfortable in this communication?
Absolutely. So the main thing that we say to couples is start when your baby's in your arms. Hey, welcome home, we're your mommy and daddy, and Mary is this wonderful surrogate mom that helped us. And just start talking about it. They're babies. Just start getting used to it. But an important thing that we say to couples is create a picture journey, a picture book of your journey. And you can go to, Costco and Amazon and Shuttlefly. They've all got these books.
Right.
Where you start creating pictures, and it's a journey of how much you wanted this child and the journey it took you and the village it took to create this child. And when your baby's young, start reading that book to your child. And then at some stage, stop reading the book, but leave it on their shelf. And somewhere along the line, your child's going to go and collect that book. When you say, what book are we reading tonight? All of a sudden, your child's going to pick that book. And they're telling you, I'm ready for the next stage.
That's a wonderful way to do it. I have had people use those books. And I actually suggest to people, which would be hard for surrogacy, that they start to tell the child the story while the child is in the womb.
Mhm.
So they
I love it.
create their own story right away, and it allows the intended parents to be comfortable with the journey.
Wait,
So
the
with the
night I was
surrogacy,
born. What happened the night I was born?
right, and so very
Story.
often when I have people who are going through surrogacy or adoption, we talk about the fact that they are pregnant. They're pregnant right now. They're just not showing the world that they're pregnant, and it's what they
Correct.
choose to tell the world. So now you meet these children, and what is the message that you typically get from the children when you talk to them?
So I ask the children, when did you find out? And then I will say to them, has the fact that you were born through surrogacy in any way impacted your life? Were you teased at school? Is there something positive, something negative? And in the early days, they were teased. Oh, you were purchased, someone paid for you, because that was in the media in those days, right? That surrogate
Right.
moms did this for the money. But now pretty much the media is not so negative anymore. So I don't often hear as much that the children are being teased. Now I hear, well, I'm no different to all the other kids. This kid is adopted. These children were all born through IVF. This child has two stepmothers. This person has two mothers. This person
Right,
has
there's
two
so many
fathers.
families today, and so many ways that families are established today.
Exactly. I mean, in our days, at our ages, life was different. But in today's world, the children live in a very blended world, so they don't feel that they're that much different to anyone else. But I haven't.
I always think of this story that I'm just going to share with you quickly, and I
Thank you.
have to say I can't give credit to where I heard it from because I don't remember. It was either a podcast that I was listening to or something that I was reading. I'm sorry that I don't remember, but it was of a parent who told their child that they were born through a donor egg. And the child was so excited, and the parents hadn't told anybody. They believed that it was the child's right to find out first. So the child, by the time they understood it, was so excited that the next day at show and tell, they got up and they told the entire class that they were born through a donor egg. And then everybody knew, the whole world. And you have to credit the parents for that, for being comfortable enough in the way that they presented it to be able to share that with the child that way.
Isn't that amazing?
I think it's the
give
most
your child
amazing
the
story. Yeah, I love
Just
it.
give your child the information. It's their story.
Yeah.
And just trust that you've done a good enough job as a parent that they will embrace that and do what they need to do with that story. But trust your children.
Yes, absolutely. And so the message really seems to be that the children feel loved and wanted, and there's security in that. And that's irreplaceable.
Interesting. So I never raise the subject with the children when I interview them about how they feel and specifically, do they know that they were wanted? I actually avoid that entire subject. And it's interesting that every single child that I interview has found a way during our interview to let me know that they understand that their parents really worked hard to have them and that they were really wanted by their parents. And they're almost specific about it with me. They'll go, but you've got to really understand, Karen, my parents really, really wanted me. I mean, your heart just breaks. It's so beautiful to hear these kids own this and be so proud of how much they were wanted.
As I hear you talk, I keep getting tears brought to my eyes, and I find that I'm not asking you quite as many questions as I want to because the stories and the way you're explaining things is really just so wonderful to listen to, at least to me. So I really appreciate it.
Children are amazing. I have a funny story just to, lighten it up a little so I don't make you cry all the time. So I asked this one child, Chase. And he's quite the character. So I was talking to Chase about how surrogacy has impacted his life, and he told me the most beautiful story. He talked about how much his parents had to work, in fact, use her entire inheritance that she had inherited to pay for him because they couldn't afford it otherwise, and they were lucky to inherit. And what he said to me is, when I'm studying, sometimes, I'm very good at college, and sometimes when I'm studying, I think, okay, I've done enough studying, I've got this down, I close my books and I want to go and do something. Says, then I always remember that if my parents had done just that, what was necessary, I wouldn't be here.
Oh my goodness.
I go back to my books, and I always put in a little extra effort.
Wow.
What a beautiful gift surrogacy has given him. I mean,
what appreciation, right? What appreciation for life and for. Oh my goodness. Well, now I really have tears in my eyes. But
That was supposed to be a happy one, and I made
Yeah.
it something else. But isn't that beautiful?
It
This
is.
way
It
the
is.
children feel.
Yes, and that's wonderful. So, how do we do this? How do we change laws and regulations so that parents can move forward in all of the states? Because all of the states don't have this at this point, and all the countries don't have it at this point. And I know
Correct.
that there's a lot
So
of things involved.
in
terms
America,
of-
most of our states now, luckily, have passed laws permitting surrogacy. So we know that last year, New York tried to bring in through through Kermer, they tried to bring in the new laws in New York. Oh, I'm getting all confused here. So they tried to change the laws in New York last year, and they got so close to changing it, but at the last minute they didn't have enough votes. I believe they will introduce new legislation next year, and they will pass it in New York.
That would be wonderful because I'm located in New York. I work with people in different places, but I'm located in New York, and most of the women that I work with have to get on a plane and fly to meet their surrogates or to go to a doctor's visit or the 20-week follow-up for the sonogram.
New Yorkers feel that they're doing something wrong. How can it be wrong to want a child?
Well, I have people from other countries where the countries don't allow it and it's looked down on, so they're not even comfortable telling friends and family because they don't want, especially Italy, they don't want
and France, believe it or not, France is. I have some children in France that, when I was recently in France and I interviewed the kids, and they don't tell any of the people in their lives that they were born through surrogacy, and that's really sad that their parents have told them, keep this quiet.
And it changes the dynamic for the child because all of a sudden there's something to feel not so good about yourself with, that it has to be a secret with how you're brought into the world.
And I tell you what I found interesting, because this one couple actually has triplets.
Oh my.
That are now 22 years old. So it's a long time ago that they had the triplets. And so in those days, they could absolutely tell no one. And the interesting thing is, every summer, those children have come to an American camp for 2 months so that they could be free with their story.
Wow.
And so that's what the parents did to them. It's when you're in America, tell anyone anything you want to know. And they talk about America in such positive terms. When they were younger, I visited them as well. And what was interesting is they pulled out of their backpacks, because they just came home from school when I arrived, and each one of them had a pencil case with the American flag on it.
Wow.
They were proud that they were born in America. And to them, America represented that they would have the freedom to talk about anything.
Yes, the freedom to be who you are.
Yeah, it's changing. I mean, it definitely is changing. I mean, Australia is, opening up more to surrogacy. You've got Canada. England, of course, has had surrogacy for a long time, although they've got very quirky, strange laws. But it's beginning to happen. The
laws are different, but the interesting thing is in the UK, you find that people are much more open and that do talk about it. And it seems as though it's not looked at in any way, shape, or form as anything but just this is what it is. Whereas in America, there's still a little bit of a stigma attached to certain types of infertility treatments.
Well, in England, there's a little bit of a stigma as well. I mean, people are not as open as, maybe in London, yes, they are, but as you go further out, it's a little more difficult. I mean, I've got very good friends of mine that have children born through my program, but they're a gay couple, and they live in the suburbs, or really far outside of London, and they're the only gay couple in their little village. And they really are having a tough time being a gay couple. Now, their children are older now because they're the same age as my children, and we go on vacations together so the kids get all the feedback that they need and the positivity that they need. But in their village, they are the only boys to a gay couple.
Wow.
And they have a hard time with that. So
I bet.
When you're in a major city, like in America, it's easier, but when you start getting to those smaller towns, there's still work that needs to be done. But you're doing a good job, Lori. You're doing this. You're doing a broadcast. I mean, this is amazing.
No, I think what you're doing is incredible and it's profound for all these families. And you just have to hope, and of course you're very involved, which is a blessing for them. But you have to hope that the boys have grown up to feel secure within themselves. And, through all of this kind of uncomfortable questioning or looking at or pointing fingers between being born with gay parents or being brought into the world through surrogacy, they were able to elicit enough confidence in themselves and who they are and self-esteem to really be able to hold their heads up high And
Yeah,
that would
it
be the
makes them a
important
little
part.
stronger because you were right. I mean, they were pretty much bullied when they were younger. So we had to work really hard on building their confidence. They would come to America, the same thing as my French couple. They would come to stay at my house every single year to boost their confidence, to meet other children born through surrogacy so that when they went back home, they didn't feel they were so alone.
That's wonderful. Yeah, and that's the piece, and that's what's so good about support groups, in my opinion, is that it brings people together so they don't feel alone.
Mm-hmm.
And I could talk to you for hours about this, but I know we have to end, and I'm wondering if there's anything that you would like to add that we didn't kind of touch on. I know we didn't get into depth about too much, but we talked quite a bit about the process and how it feels, and hopefully the laws and the regulations will change all over and people can be comfortable. But is there anything else that you'd like to add?
Well, for me, the best advice I can give any intended parent is absolutely seek guidance. So go to a mental health professional, go to a group support meeting. It is invaluable. Even if you've never done that before and you only go to one or two, you've opened the door in case you need to come back at a later time. So give yourself the gift of getting some kind of counseling, even if it's 1 or 2 sessions. Be very proud of what you've done. Remember, it's a disease and you were able to overcome this. And really believe in your children. Your children will be fine. Just tell them the truth. Embrace it. Be very proud of how you created them. And I've spoken to hundreds of children. They are marvelous kids. Very proud of the way they came into the world.
Oh, fabulous. I'd love to maybe have some on this podcast one day.
Oh, absolutely. We can arrange that.
Oh, okay. Well, let's do that. We'll talk about that later.
Absolutely. Yeah, I think they would love it.
Oh, that would be fabulous. Fabulous. Well, thank you. Thank you so much for all your information, Karen. And if somebody wants to get a hold of you or the agency, how would they do that?
Just go online to creatingfamilies.com. And you go to contact us and you can send us an email. And I'm happy to speak to anyone that needs some guidance.
Oh, thank you so much. And if anybody has any comments or questions, please feel free to contact me at lorimetz.net. Thank you.
All right. Thank you, Lori.
Thank you, Karen.